Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Podcast. Now, listen, so that you understand exactly what this means, is that my guest today, Desi Bolin, was with me about a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago. And we did a podcast, and we'll reference her podcast in our notes here below in the comments section. And you can go back and listen to exactly what she does and what she was doing a year ago. And the whole idea behind Beyond the Podcast, as I say every single time, is that we're just catching up with everyone. Remember the show, Where Are They Now? That's kind of what this is. Where are they now? I should probably call this Where Are They Now? Then I don't have to explain it. But welcome, Desi. I'm so happy to have you back.
Thank you, Jen. I'm so happy to be here and catch up with you.
Yeah, and thank you for getting up early in the morning where you're at. I appreciate that. Listen, we all have to do that in Zoom. That's a sacrifice, right? It's versus having to drive someplace and meet someone and drive back and this and the other. It's kind of our little sacrifice. But we're so happy to have you back here, Desi. And I know that, last time we had talked exclusively about virtual assistants and what we need to look for in a virtual assistant. And I wish the word was changed, to be honest with you, because I don't call anyone on my team a virtual assistant because I just actually don't like the word assistant myself. So I wish there was another way that we could call this like a virtual strategist or a virtual something else, because it means, what you do means so much to so many people that are in business. So tell us a little bit about what's happened over the last year, because you have elevated yourself from a virtual assistant to an executive assistant. So tell us what's transpired over the last year and what you've learned over this last year, because, and I know it's a really long question, but what do you have learned over the past year that has changed? Because this past year is the year that we have all started going back to real meetings and real events and still doing virtual. But what has really transpired for you that you've seen in the market as well?
Yeah. Well, you did kind of touch on it already. I did make the shift from being a strategic virtual assistant, and we are now positioned as virtual executives. And that is really because we come in at a high level and
Mhm.
talk strategy and talk implementation design and all of the pieces that really move a business forward. That's one of the biggest things. Outside of that, a lot of what I have learned in this last year has been around learning myself and who I want to be in the world. So a lot of personal growth. And out of that, we had a business model shift, and it is really allowing us to scale and grow in a way that is not eating up my calendar, which I am really, really excited about, because that is a challenge as an entrepreneur, especially the solopreneurs. Your calendar can get filled very quickly. And I think it's very important to make sure that, one, you're aligned with your mission and everything that you do, and two, that you don't sacrifice all of your time.
Yeah. Well, and I think that message is whether you're an executive, virtual executive, or whether you're an entrepreneur, right? And of course, it's exactly what I coach and teach on is scaling and getting your life back and utilizing team members to help you buy time, because that's really what you're doing is you're buying time. And especially for the things that drag you down and that hold you back and the things you don't like to do. So you said something really interesting, that you've had this personal growth yourself, and then you made a shift in your business. I've talked to a lot of people that are making shifts, myself included. My shift into who I want to focus on, who my avatar is. And why do you think that that's happened? Do you think we kind of burned out of the shift that we all made? It wasn't called a shift then, it was a pivot that we all made during the pandemic, right? The pandemic pivot. We all made this pivot in the pandemic, and we've been going 100 miles an hour. And maybe there's this burnout that's happened that said, okay, that's what life gave me during that period. And so this is what I'm going to do. Do you think that it's that, or do you think that, and I know you're speaking for yourself, but what are you seeing in your clients that are they shifting? Or are you and I the only two?
No, they are definitely shifting. And I think a lot of it is really getting very aligned to who they want to show up to be and who they want to serve and the mission that they're there to support. Like mine is just to love on, serve, and
Mhm.
support everyone, right? It doesn't matter who they are.
Yeah.
And I
No.
think really getting aligned to that is what is
Mhm.
causing the shift, which I am super thrilled about because that means that you're going to stay in it for the long haul. If you're in your mission, you're going to be around.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's critical because we know what the stats are on small businesses and entrepreneurs and things like that. I think there's some excitement in the air as well because of an election being over. And I'm just going to leave it like that. Like it's over. Finally, it's over. Right. I'm tired of ads. I'm tired of texts, although I'm still getting them, but I was so tired of the ads and what's going to happen and the not knowing. And I think that a lot of people were sort of frozen, for a while and looking, at what they were going to do. And I think that now that an election is over, people can start seeing the dust, settle regardless of what side they were on. It's like, it's just over. Let's move on. But, as you were saying that, I was thinking about myself through COVID, where it was, how do I get mass exposure? Because the only way we had to do it was through being on the internet and things. And up until then, I'd only done random acts of marketing on the internet because I was at places. And so I think about this and I'm thinking, I'm a buzzword kind of girl. So I was thinking, exposure growth, because that's what it was, exposure growth. I need exposure. I need exposure. I'll do anything and everything because I need exposure. I'll try this. Still staying in alignment, at least for myself and you too, because you're still doing assisting. But I think now it's exponential growth. It's not exposure growth, it's exponential growth. Now let me get down to the brass tactics and get some real growth in my life.
Right. Yeah, I definitely see that. And for me, the virtual world is always going to be here. I don't
Yeah,
know if you
will
recall,
be.
Jen, but I live in a very small town.
Yes.
Virtual is needed.
Right.
So it's definitely in a period of exponential growth, and I'm starting to see that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's important. Okay, so what is the main thing you're seeing now with your clients and what's holding them back from a time perspective?
With most of my clients, when they onboard with me, we go through a process that helps with a little bit of the mindset of business. And for me, and what I see on a daily basis is that they don't live in their zone of genius. They're taking on everything that is outside of their zone of genius, which is everything they love to do and everything that they're really great at doing.
Mhm.
Right. So my coaching typically revolves around everything that does not fall within those two categories, delegate it. Get
Yeah.
someone else to do it because there is people out there willing, ready, able to do it. And that is what really, I think, frees up their time and their mind space to focus on their creative genius and really move the needle forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you're talking about is called the hedgehog theory. I call it the triumphant, what do I call it? Oh my goodness, I'm Catholic, so I should know this. Trinity. Gosh, I renamed it. The Trinity of Triumph, right? It's the three pieces, Father, Son, Holy Ghost, right? So it's these three pieces. It's what you're really good at doing, right? What you love to do. But the third element is what makes financial sense for your business for you to be doing it. And if it doesn't make financial sense for you to do it, that's when you need to hire somebody, right?
Right.
If it makes financial sense for you to do it, keep doing it because you love doing it and you're really good at it. But it has to make financial sense for that. And I think that's a really good message as people are putting their business plans together right now, right? Or hopefully have them finished, that they're putting them together. It's like, what can I delegate? What can I give to other people so that I'm not miserable doing the things I don't like to do and not making money at the same time?
Right. Right.
Yeah, I think that's really good. What counsel would you give to someone who is thinking about hiring an executive strategist?
That is a good question because, because I customize it so much for each person I meet with. It's a little bit challenging for me to say. However, what I would say is one, say yes and take a step, do it.
Discover what it is. Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And I would also say make sure they're a fit for your values. If you're looking to work with someone on that high of a level, make sure that they align with your values and your mission. If
Hmm.
they can't align with that, they're not going to be able to support you in the way that you need them to.
Can you give me an example of that? What you mean by aligning with values so that they can support you?
Yeah, absolutely. In my business, for our clients, we have pillars of freedom, strength, support, security, and stability.
Hmm.
And if I'm working with a client, they typically will need to align with those or say, hey, that resonates with me in order for us to have a very good working relationship. There has been a couple of instances where I have worked with a few people that did not align with those values, and the relationships fell apart very early on because we were not in the same mind space
Hmm.
as far as what scaling and growth could bring about and having those pillars as the foundation.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And I think that, it's a two-way street. We have to come in with pillars, searching for someone to help us, and that someone needs to have their own core values as well. Because if they lack that, that's a really good point. So if you're watching this, you want to be asking, what are your core business core values so that I know if I'm in alignment. I can bring mine to the table all day long. But if you don't have anything that aligns with me, I can't mind read it during an interview. I just can't. I
Right.
need to know. Right. And then I think if they were to say, one of their core values was X, then go seek that out, search them online, see if that they're really living up to X, because that's something that as humans we have a problem with. A lot of my clients will say, well, family is a core value of mine. And I go, well, then why are you working till midnight?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have boundaries around your core values. So it's one thing to have them, it's another to have the boundaries around them and to live them. So I think that's a really good, that's super good advice, to make sure. And thanks for giving us an, specific example, because I want to make sure that everybody understands that. Yeah. All right. Any parting thoughts? Because this is shorter than our podcast.
I know. Parting thoughts. I would say don't be scared about taking a step forward and getting help because you can really move forward a lot faster
Mhm.
when you have the right kind of help. And then just have conversations with people. Just let the conversations go where they go and be open to whatever that conversation brings about, whether it's a joint venture, whether you wind up selling them, you never know, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's good. I think having that open mind, like you started this whole thing with mindset, and then one of the first things you work on is mindset. And I do think that as entrepreneurs, we do have to remember that we cannot do it all. I mean, that's how big companies become big companies. They're not doing it all, right? And we have
Right.
to think like a business. We have to truly think like a business. I love that. That's great, great advice. Okay, and we will make sure that we put your at sign in our notes, right, in our comments as well, so that everyone can reach out to you that is interested in having a conversation with you. And I again want to say thank you so much for getting up early,
Mm-hmm.
for getting up early and
It
being
was my pleasure.
well, and hopefully it's a good, nice start to your day too. You go, okay, I already did that, I already got something accomplished, and away I go, so hopefully it's a good day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I want to wish you happy holidays and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And thank you again for being such a trooper and coming back and telling us where you are now and what's happened beyond the podcast. I sure appreciate it.
Absolutely. And happy holidays to you as well. I hope it's
Thank
a really
you.
great time with your family.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we'll catch you next time on Beyond the Podcast.